I want to welcome everyone to this third and final installment of our live talk series on risk management and agri-SME finance under COVID-19. This third session will entitled Examples of Agri-SME Risk Management and Post-COVID Policy Implications. As I said, is the third of our series. My name is Michael Von During. I'm the technical specialist with the SAFIN Secretariat. The Live Talk series has been hosted, co-hosted by SAFIN, which is a network of 53 institutions who share a commitment to accelerate access to finance for small and medium agribusinesses. Along with the ILO's social finance program, which works with the financial sector to enable it to contribute to the ILO's decent work agenda with an emphasis on social justice. Along with the Platform for Agricultural Risk Management, or PARM, which is a G20 global partnership that provides technical support to government of development countries for the integration of agricultural risk management. And finally, the Forum for Agricultural Risk Management in Development, or FARM-D, which is a community of practice managed by PARM for knowledge sharing on agricultural risk management. So just a few logistical points to address before we move into the meeting proper. First of all, there's a chat box that's permanently available on the right side of your screen, and the audience is welcome to use it to pose any questions or comments to the presenters and panelists of this session. I would suggest that you post your questions to everyone rather than just the host to ensure that they can be compiled effectively and brought together for the Q&A session that will follow at the end of the webinar. Additionally, we'll have two polls during the webinar. These are going to be questions that we invite the audience to answer, and will give us a sense of where the audience stands in terms of some of the key questions that we're trying to address in this series and this specific session. At the end of the webinar, before you leave the room, we'll have an evaluation for the audience as well that will be asked to respond to a quick questionnaire to evaluate the session. And that will also be appearing on the right side of your screen. And finally, in case of any technical issues, we have web support that's provided also by the FARM-D live host, who we invite you to contact directly in the chat function. So moving into what this live talk series has been about. As I said, at a high level, the series has been on risk management and agri-SME finance under COVID-19. The three-part series has aimed to, first of all, assess the overall offering, as well as the limitations of the agricultural risk management toolbox in light of the ongoing experience with COVID-19, by listening in particular to the perspectives of agri-SMEs themselves and agri-lenders. Secondly, we seek to advance practical learning by reviewing concrete examples of the use of selected number of tools and approaches for risk assessment, risk measurement and pricing, and risk management centered on agri-SMEs and agri-SME finance providers, and trying to look at the impacts achieved through their uses. In terms of sessions to date, the first session, risk management for agri-SME finance, addressing new challenges in the era of COVID-19 was an opportunity to provide an introduction into the agricultural risk management toolbox, which was followed by a panel session to give a global perspective of some of the main trends that had been identified. We had a second session last month, which presented some case studies of specific examples of agricultural risk management tools used by financial service providers in particular, covering a number of different contexts, including local financial service providers in India, government risk-sharing mechanism in Togo, and global agri-SME risk assessment platform. And now this third session is going to provide us with some examples of, case studies that are specific to agri-SMEs and their risk management approaches and tools through the pandemic. There will also be an opportunity to discuss some of the policy implications that are resulting from the lessons learned from this crisis in view of a post-COVID world. In terms of the agenda, we will follow these opening remarks with a presentation of the 3 case studies, which will be moderated and managed by my colleague Michael Hamp, who is the lead regional technical specialist for rural finance, markets, and value chains at IFAD, generally based out of New Delhi, currently joining us from Germany, I believe. And following this, these presentations of the case studies will engage in a discussion with the presenters in order to get into some of the key themes that we will be identifying through these case study presentations. This will be followed by a Q&A, where we will be taking the questions that have been posed in the chat box by the audience and posing them to our presenters. And finally, we'll be closing out the session at the end of this. So without further ado, I'd like to move now to the first poll, which I invite you all to answer. The question here is to get a sense of what is the greatest factor, in your view, that is influencing an agri-SME's exposure to risk resulting from COVID-19. Please take the time. You have about 2 minutes to answer this. And following this, we will move to our presentations and panel discussion. So thank you, Michael. Please take it from here.
Good. Michael, I do my poll first, submitted. So I hope many others have done the same while opening now the second part of this exciting live talks. Thank you, Michael. So you have to deal now with another Michael. We have Michael van During and Michael Hamp. I was already nicely introduced by Michael van During, so thanks for that. And also thank you for actually making my life very easy, Michael. You have already taken a lot of my part. I was going to share with the big audience that is joining us today. So I can skip all that introductory part. But most important, I think, is I'm really, it's my great pleasure. Let's put it that way. It's my great pleasure participating as the moderator of this exciting panel that includes presentations of 3 case studies from 3 continents that will further enrich our knowledge and what Michael calls the ARM, the Agricultural Risk Management Toolbox, in light of the ongoing experience with COVID-19 pandemic. So again, today is the third and final session of the PARM-D live talks. you have heard, this is facilitated by IFAD PARM, SAFIN, and the ILO Social Finance Program. So with that, I can immediately jump into the panel, because I mean, all of you are connected not to hear the moderator talking long, but to follow the presentations, the live cases. And it is my great pleasure to introduce the first speaker, who is Ms. Megha Desai, coming from my country. Allow me to say so, from my host country, India. So Megha Desai is of the Indian Self-Employed Women Association, SEWA. SEWA, no, I don't. You will introduce SEWA. Megha has been working with SEWA for the last 13 years and has led the programs on rebuilding lives of war and other disaster-affected women in countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Nepal. Megha is the director of BEES network. BEES stands for Business, Enterprise and Employment Support for Women in South Asia. Her journey started with rebuilding lives of riots-affected widows and single-parent and orphaned children, and then moved on to lead SEWA's work in war zones in Afghanistan and Sri Lanka for economic rehabilitation of war-affected widows. She also participated in the workshops for the economic empowerment of the vulnerable women of Myanmar and Nepal. Her list of specific programs is too long for sharing here. Just to mention a few: economic rehabilitation of small and marginal farmers, setting up community learning business resource centers, developing leaders from vulnerable communities, value-based teaching and peace building, support and guidance to set up value chain and startup businesses with linkages to financial service providers, markets, and government programs. Last but not least, forming women grassroots organizations. So currently, Megha is handling the National Farmers Forum network of SEWA, which covers 13 states of India, with the objective to provide livelihood support through agro-businesses and policy advocacy. Megha, I also want to mention this, holds a degree in commerce and law from the Gujarat University in India, and has undergone the Senior Management Development Program from the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. The title of her presentation is Rudy. We will learn about Rudy, a resilient agricultural business enterprise of small and marginal farmers. So, Megha, you have 8 minutes to present Rudy. Over to you. You're muted.
Thank you very much, Michael. Distinguished guests, fellow panelists, and dear participants. Namaste, good evening, afternoon, and morning to everyone. I'm Megha Desai, a senior coordinator at Self-Employed Women's Association in India. It has been almost 13 years at SEWA that I have closely understood the situation of small and marginal farmers who have small piece of land, approximately 2 hectares, depend on rain, who have no or limited access to finance, technology, and market. And in absence of security covers, climate risk is always a threat. We had seen that the current time is very unusual times, and most sufferers are women. The COVID and lockdown has resulted in destructive work and in income for small and marginal farmers. If we talk in numbers, a study by SEWA shows that 71% of the informal sector workers have lost their livelihoods completely. And if we see global scenario, it took almost 3 decades to lift 1.3 billion people out of poverty, but just few months to fall back in. Today, we are happy to be part of a panel to share our story, a story of resilience of our women farmers, the story of organized strength, and becoming owners and managers of their own sustainable and growing enterprises, which is called Rural Distribution Network, or RUDI. SEWA has organized 1.7 million women from informal sector in India, of which larger members are in farming, which is almost 54%. So why does farmer remain hungry? To address this challenge, Rural Distribution Network, or RUDI, an agro-processing company, was born. RUDI, which has roots back in 2004, when Seva's agriculture campaign brought out market as one of the biggest challenge after climate risk for small and marginal farmers. RUDI is a for-profit company which runs on a hub and spoke model, and RUDI initiated these operations by supporting rural producer groups by internally generating funds to provide them freedom of sale in open market, which earlier they had to sell to money lenders at lower rates. So RUDI procures directly from the small farmers in the villages at fair price. RUDI has established processing centers at rural hubs where the commodities are stored, cleaned, graded, grinded, weighted, packed, and labeled. Seva's members network is target customer base to ensure food and nutrition security. So to produce is then promoted, marketed, and sold through RUDI bands. So RUDI bands are rural saleswomen who are from Seva member base, and they sell house to house in the villages at competitive prices. RUDI's portfolio has now 32 products, which are spices, pulses, wheat, cotton, etc. So this is based on the needs of the rural consumers, and the products are priced according to the purchasing power of poor households. By procuring products locally and processing them and distributing them locally, RUDI has created a sustainable ecosystem at the village and block level, a fully decentralized supply chain which is owned and managed by our members, a model that can be replicated and expanded seamlessly. RUDI has 9 processing centers in Gujarat, and now it has expanded in the other states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan, where they have 2 processing centers. And we have also started selling in urban areas and have now B2B operations as well. Next slide. The digital payment integration process has been undertaken to bring farmers to the digital platform for receipt and payment through different apps like Paytm or Bhim, etc. The members' capacity is built by Seva Manager School by motivating young women in rural areas to become bank sathis or Paytm agents who provide financial services to members. They also provide access of financial services to members. So this helps in ensuring cash flow in hands of rural members who do not fall in clutches of money lenders for funds or for market or during disasters. Next. Technology is in hands of women farmers is also a savior. To increase efficiency of the stock ordering processes, we have introduced a mobile-based management information system called RUDI Sandesha Vyavhar, which is abbreviated as RSV. The RSV application enables RUDI bands to place an order for new stock on her handset, which is transmitted to the RUDI central office via SMSs. The information is received by RUDI management in real time and managed by web-based backend at the appropriate processing center. Another significant advantage of this technology is that it enables RUDI bands to manage their own business and customer records, and that information they can use for their planning. So now, through the RUDI, the farmer members get fair price at the doorsteps. The rural young women get livelihoods in rural areas. About 4,000 RUDI bands are involved in selling through the processing centers, where the customers get clean and nutrition food. So the 3 major aspects of RUDI, which averts the risk of ownership of the farmers, the decentralized local supply chain, and confluence of satisfaction of each segment of the supply chain. They are commonly viewed as a Seva, who believes in Gandhian values of developing local economy, helps in managing the risk and making it resilient. So our experience of RUDI during COVID and lockdown says that decentralized supply chains really works. and expands during the pandemic. Those who were deprived of food during the lockdown got food security through Rudy, a network of Seva members who were connected and supplied food to the food-deprived families and sold to other communities, even during lockdown, through the network of members that provided them livelihoods and to others food and nutrition security. So we have small farmers who are growing vegetables, and markets were closed down, transportation were not available, so the vegetables were fed to cattle or just went rotten. On the other hand, we have members in urban areas who are vegetable vendors whose work was standstill. So we link producers with the vendors who started doing home delivery of vegetables to the urban societies by getting permission of the government. Now it has turned into a formal enterprise, and 200 vegetable growers and 400 vendors regularly supply vegetables. So it's a dignified work for them. So if I talk about numbers, so revenue of Rudy is about 100 million Indian rupees. The profit margin is 1%, and about 0.1 million farmers and 4,000 Rudy bands are connected and getting livelihood through Rudy. And about 4.5 million households are getting access of the Rudy products. So we are connected with 3,000 villages in 4 states. So our learning says that work is a healer. And during the case of earthquake or any disasters, women always wanted work and not the cash or any support, any other. So for them, they say when we work, we can, it reduces the stress. So work is a healer. And a decentralized supply chain, the local supply chain works and expands even during pandemic. We must also try localization, local production, local management, and local consumption. At Seva, we call this 100-mile principle. So other things are, it also ensures food and nutrition security and livelihood security, even during pandemic. And support to these farmers is also very important. So at Seva, we have developed a concept of livelihood recovery fund. So those small and marginal farmers who do not have access to the finance or it is delayed. So during that period, the fund is providing support to farmers, and that really helps. And human-centric approach is needed for poor, tiny micro-enterprises and entrepreneurs for technology or for the processes. And small and
your 10th minute.
Okay, so I'm almost done. So at the last is equal partnership is required and no charity is required. So thank you very much for giving me opportunity. Thank you so much.
Vega, sorry for the intervention, but we want to equally distribute the time we have for the panel talk. Once again, thank you very much for the excellent, really excellent presentation. And I know you also have prepared a small video, and if time allows, we will go back and also see the video. It's worth watching it, definitely. I hope also that in the panel discussion and the Q&A, we can learn even more about the effectiveness of the rural distribution network, and particularly the new technologies you are applying in the hands of women Seva members. So let me ask you one question, and perhaps you take some notes, as it is a quite comprehensive question, but not a difficult one. So the question is, how has the crisis specifically affected access to finance for producer groups and women-owned managed agro-supply chain businesses in terms of their ability and requirement to repay existing loans, the ability to secure new funds through the linkage banking approach, the entry of new actors or programs? You have mentioned the Livelihood Recovery Fund, so perhaps you want to say a little bit more on that. And then, yeah, last but not least, because we also want to address the policy side, so what are the interventions by the government of India you want to highlight I have more, but I stop here. The floor is back to you.
So thank you, Michael. Bye. I hope my voice is clear.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, so the effectiveness, as I said, is it's a network of women. Through Seva, they are organized. And we believe in Gandhian philosophy. And we believe that the members, they are not poor. They just need work. So the confluence of three things, the satisfaction of the customers, the work that we provide, and how we got, even during pandemic, we are connected with our members through these mobile apps. So access to technology is one of the important aspects for effectiveness even during pandemic, the network and access to the technology. Secondly, you said about the funds. Of course, there was a lockdown and the COVID was at the stage when there was a crop going for cultivation, so for market, and the new season was to be start. So exactly at that time, the lockdown and COVID happened. So farmers were facing really challenges. On one hand, for some farmers, there were crop in the farms, but no laborers. The lockdown did not allow them to go. Only women sometimes were allowed to go. So it was really difficult for to cultivate. Secondly, those who had cultivated, the logistics, the transport was not open, so they could not sell. Even in the market players were not aware about the global situation because in some cases like cotton, they were looking for the global supply chain. So even though there were challenges, and we also appealed to the government to help them open, and they opened, but sometimes sale was not happening. So that hampered the cash flow in hands of farmers at the time when they had to prepare for the next season. So the support, and you are aware about the small and marginal farmers, many of them do not have land on their own name. So access to finance from the farmer sources is really difficult. So that is why Seva has come up with the Livelihood Recovery Fund, which provides support, which provides immediate support to small and marginal farmers so they cannot skip the next season and they do not fall into poverty. So Livelihood Recovery Fund, as I said, is the requirement of the farmers, the immediate requirement of the farmers that helps them prevent from the risk of falling from the poverty. It is a small amount which they may require for the seed, for irrigation. It depends on when the risk occur at which stage of farming. And based on that, the funds are provided. And that helps them to strengthen themselves to access asset building and access to the formal support system. So this is the objective of Livelihood Recovery Fund. And I hope that I have covered all your questions. So back to you. Thank you.
Almost all of the questions. Perhaps on the question about particular government interventions like the moratoriums on repayment or special funding, waivers, or something. I mean, the government of India had a very comprehensive package of interventions in place. Has it affected you? Is it effective? Very briefly, because we will come back to the policy dimension in the course of the panel discussion later again.
Yes. There are many reforms and there are many amendments in the law of the government. When we talk about the small and marginal farmers, they hardly can access the government loans. There is a very limited farmers who can access that. So I wonder that how much percentage have got benefit from this moratorium. But of course, we can see that the loans that they got from the different sources, we had tried to help them how they can efficiently use it and also ensure the repayment. We have a Seva bank from where the support is given, and the Seva bank again is a members owned bank, the informal sector women's owned bank. So the Seva bank and the district associations, the farmers organizations which have been promoted by Seva at district level, they provide immediate support to the farmers, and the repayment is based on their cycle of the farming. This is the support that is provided by Seva. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Megha, for answering the additional questions and sharing even more of your experience in these special times. Good. I think it's time now to move on from South Asia to South America. And it's my great pleasure coming to the second speaker of today, who is Mr. Daniel Rivera. Daniel is the General Manager of the non-profit impact investor Rook Capital, an investment fund specialized on agricultural enterprises that support smallholder producers. Daniel leads the Lima-based partner organization ACCDER. I don't know, you will better pronounce it or tell us how to better pronounce it, in Peru. His experience and skills include financial analysis, project evaluation and monitoring, and economic research. Previously, Daniel had worked as a financial manager at Rainforest Trading and as a loan analyst at Banco del Trabajo, both located in Peru. Daniel holds a BA in economics from the Catholic University in Peru. The case study being presented is on Rook Capital and one of its clients, particularly the local coffee cooperative Unicafe in the Peruvian Andes, and how it manages the impact of COVID-19. Daniel, the floor is yours, and you have also 8 minutes, and I will stop you latest when you reach 10 minutes, if in case you do. So please, over to you.
Thanks, Michael, for the introduction, and I'm glad to be here in this live talk. Next slide, please. I'm going to present the case of Peruvian cooperative called Unicafe, but let me first give you a quick introduction of us. Rook Capital invest in the growth of agribusiness so they can transform rural communities. These businesses purchase crops such as coffee, cocoa, or grains from smallholder farmers. We supply to this business with vital resources like access to financial capital through loans and financial training and conservation practices through our advisory service. We work in East Africa, Indonesia, and Latin America. Today, we distribute $1.5 billion to more than 700 enterprises to improve the life of nearly 10 million people in farming communities. Next slide, please. Well, one of those agribusiness is the Cooperativa Unicafe that was established in 2001, has nearly 400 farmer members, and is located in San Ignacio, Cajamarca, in northern Peru. As its name refers, Unicafe is an exporter of high quality and organic coffee. The first loan of Rook Capital to them was in 2006, 14 years ago. The amount was $100,000 for working capital needs. Since then, we have been growing with them in different loans and advisory services. Unicafe has experimented different moments with challenge and successes, but maintaining a stable growth. However, in November 2019, they lost his leader, Alfredo Alarcón, general manager since the foundation of the cooperative, suddenly passed away. And Donald Delgado, who worked for more than 12 years in the cooperative, took the helm of Unicafe. Please, next slide. So, like other agribusiness that are organization of small farmers, Unicafe face different risks in governance, production, financial, commercialization, and quality controls. In order to manage those risks, during many years, Unicafe, supported by Rook Capital and other partners, has developed different tools to have an effective cash management, to prepare accurate projections of collection and sales, to keep a good track of export contracts. These tools have allowed them to have a healthy internal credit program, to maintain a constant evaluation of its operations, and to provide a climate-focused agronomic assistance to farmers, to improve the internal inspection as well, and to make better decisions through data digitalization and business intelligence reports. Please, next slide. So, with the transition of a new general manager at the end of 2019 and many tools already in place and running the cooperative, Unicafe received the pandemic. In May of this year, despite of a swift government response, Peru quickly became one of the countries hardest hit by the pandemic. The virus spread from urban centers to rural communities like San Ignacio, where Unicafe is located, and it arrived just in time for the harvest. So coffee pickers were reliant to migrate from other regions to San Ignacio to help with the harvest. Due to this and other reasons, additional to the risk that we saw before, Unicafe experiment other issues in logistics, health, and competition with higher local prices. In that context, Unicafe facilitate community harvesting. Donald adjusts his sales targets, reducing them in 20%, and assure the cash provision with the loan of Rook Capital. Also, he intensified the communication with different stakeholders in order to avoid any disruption in the operation and exportation. Finally, and maybe the most important action, he and working with his team to strengthen the relationship with farmer members in order to ensure the coffee collection and the sales of the cooperative. Please, next slide. Definitely, all this change and adaptations represent the biggest challenge of the pandemic, as Donald explained here. How we communicate, travel, it has all been such as a broad change that it will be a challenge for anyone to adapt to these new ways of living. No? In early days of the pandemic, the Peruvian government allowed agribusiness, like Unicafe, to continue operation as long as they institute biosafety protocols. But Unicafe wasn't sure how to apply public health guidance to the farm or warehouse setting. In fact, many of our clients in Rook Capital agricultural businesses were facing the same challenge. So next slide, please. So, viewing that reality, in Rook Capital, we established a rapid response in order to support organizations like Unicafe that needed to adapt as soon as possible to the new context. Our response focused first on adapt our lending operation, so our client, agri-SMEs, have enough cash to continue operation. Second, Rook Capital canalized grants from our donors to our clients to preventing the spread of COVID-19 in the communities, business continuity, food security, and social protection. And third, Rook Capital focused to provide advisory to support enterprises to implement new health protocols, provide information about change in international markets, and manage cash flow. Please, next slide. For example, in the case of Unicafe, the grant was used to establish sanitizing station around the cooperative. They were also able to hire a young man from the community to serve as a COVID-19 ambassador, educating members who visit the cooperative on the rule and monitoring for compliance. With the reminder of the funds, the cooperative staff traveled into the mountains to distribute masks and explain the protocols to the farmer members. So Donald leadership with the adaptation that Unicafe should to do prioritizing health with a multidimensional support of its partners like Rook Capital and with a previous solid organization structure, the cooperative has survived its first harvest under the heel of COVID-19, maintaining livelihoods while positioning the business to continue driving impact well after the pandemic. Please, next, I think final slide. Finally, some key learnings from this successful story. First, prioritizing health, Unicafe instilled confidence in its members, keeping all safe and increasing the volume of coffee collection. Secondly, thinking in this pandemic as an opportunity to build resilience for the future has allowed them to plan, for instance, contingencies for labor shortage and solidifying and diversifying commercial relationships. Finally, from the side of agribusiness partners like multilateral institutions, foundations, NGOs, we think that it's important to have a multidimensional approach to increase the resilience of agricultural enterprises, prioritizing the cash flow for operation, building capacity for adaptation, and providing target funds that could mitigate directly the impact of shocks at the level of enterprises and producer members. Thank you very much, Michael. Back to you.
No, thanks to you, Daniel. This was a terrific presentation. Excellent, really, for sharing all the insights, the lessons learning part. I believe the audience is very, very happy to be part of that lesson learning presentation. Daniel, would you like to elaborate a bit further on the type of agricultural risk management tools that have been deployed by Unicafe, but also on other clients of Rook Capital, whether in Southern America or as you mentioned, the geographic capital perhaps of the world. So they have gone through all kind of risks and found mechanisms to address them. Just to mention the risk management tools they deployed fighting the coffee leaf rust, the fungus that has been sweeping through coffee growing regions in Central America and Peru around 2012 and the following years. So is there something that has been tested now also for the current pandemic and being effective? And then on the other clients, so what do you know about adapting existing tools, and have these tools been introduced specifically to address the new risks related to health? I leave it with these two questions to you and gives you the opportunity to further talk about your work. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Michael. Well, in general terms, in the case of Unicafe, tools like an effective management of cash flow with the spreads and the system that are working well to them. They have a system very well organized in order to collect all the information that they need to project the collections, the amount of the productions that the producers, the farmers could have every year. This is quite important in order not only to the operation of the cooperative, but also to maintain certifications in the coffee industry, and at least in the sector that we work with a small organization producers. It's quite important the maintaining a big data to provide to certifiers or even the buyers with information about the producers. So in these times of data management, Unicafe has developed systems and data digitalizations and more important analysis around this data. No, that is helping to provide insights and to the management of the cash, but also the management of the commercial areas. Also to the management of the productions to avoid new disease, like, as you said, the Roya that came to Peru and other places in Latin America in 2012 and 13. In fact, in that moment when that disease came to Latin America in 2013, Rook Capital generate a project called Coffee Resilience in Innovation, CFRI. And with that project, we could provide to Unicafe many services to improve the financial analysis, but also to digitalize the data. In that sense, now in these years, they have been using those elements, those tools of that moment. As you said, in this year they have proved all the process, the improvement that have been working during the last 4 or 5 years, no? And this is something that not only Unicafe are having, and we have many other cases in our portfolio, in our group of clients that we support, that we are viewing many projects, many initiatives to increase the quality of the management of the organization. So back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Again, very good answers to the questions. And I see more questions coming to you later. There's a growing number of questions, comments in the chat box. And I would like to take the opportunity in the meantime to encourage participants, the audience, to post more of your questions in the chat box, which will be read out during the Q&A period and answered by our distinguished panelists. Our third speaker today is Mr. Mumo Musembe. Mumo Musembe is the commercial director of Pula. Pula is an insurance tech company providing insurance. Mumo, are you here? I can't see you. Mumo? Yeah, okay, good. Sorry. I was confused when I didn't see your picture. I thought we had lost you. Good. So back to Pula. Pula is an insurtech company providing insurance and digital marketing services for smallholder farmers in emerging markets. Working across 11 countries in Africa and Asia, Pula has facilitated crop and livestock insurance policies to cover over 3.5 million farm households. Pula has been recognized globally and winning, amongst others, the Singapore FinTech Festival Global Accelerator, the Women World Banking Innovation Award, and the Credit Suisse Private Innovation Award, and it has been profiled at TED Talk and the World Economic Forum for Africa. With more than 20 years experience in marketing, sales, and general management, Mumo Musembe holds a BSc from University of Nairobi and an MBA from the Richard Ivey School of Business. The title of the case study he's going to present now is Pula Risk Management Solutions for SME finance under COVID-19. Mumu, the floor is yours for the next 8, maximum 10 minutes for your presentation. Over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Michael. If we can just go on to the next slide. I'll just start with a brief introduction about Pula. Active in about 11 countries, providing insurance products for smallholder farmers. Reached about 3.4 million farmers so far, and hopefully equal to about 5 million farmers in the course of this year. Next. Next, please. So this is just sort of a sampling of different partners that we are working with. The Gates Foundation, Mulango, Action, Mercy-Corps, and some of our customers across the region. In Africa, and then we are doing a couple of projects in Asia now, in Latin America. Next, please. So just a quick snapshot of what we actually do. So if I'm to explain it this way, the current indemnity models do not work well for the smallholder farmer when it comes to insurance, because if you think through it, the process of filling out policy documents, submitting them, in case of a loss event, perhaps a drought or a flood, filling out the claim documents, and then from there, the claim documents then have to be get an assessor on site, and that assessor then has to be, put an assessment report, send it out. Works well for the commercial farmer, but you think about a drought or a flood that might affect 80,000 smallholder farmers, there's no way this model can work. And so essentially what happens here is we have to work with an index-based model. And that's what Pula essentially designs and supplies. So examples here is sort of the area yield index, which is an index based on yields, hybrid index, which is area yield together with weather index being measured, livestock insurance, which is also based on a greenness index. And these are typically the products that Pula provides for the smallholder farmers. Next. I'll skip this one. This just basically shows the different parts of our ecosystem: the insurer, the reinsurer, the client, the agent. Go on. Next slide, please. Okay, so the case study we're going to speak about today is around a customer, an SME in the solar paygo system. So essentially what has happened today there's been a rapid rise in solar home systems. There's actually about 5 million people actually across Africa now that are actually getting their systems, their electricity from solar systems. So what we've done is essentially partner with a paygo company. Can you go on to the next slide, which is called Vitalite. So this began around in 2019, and essentially what happened here was there was a major drought that affected the Lusaka province of Zambia. And as a result, what they realized was during the drought, these rural households that were getting the electricity from solar paygo systems were not essentially making payments on their debt. And so working with IFAD and the Insured Project, we essentially did a pilot project in Zambia last year. And essentially these are the outcomes. The quick outcomes were, next slide. Seasonality plays a significant impact on the uptake of the solar home systems. A second outcome of this, next slide, was that there's a strong correlation between the performance of the paygo portfolio, the solar home system portfolio, and the agricultural season. So good seasons, better performance; bad seasons, poor performance. And the last outcome on the next slide is essentially a strong negative correlation between the agricultural season and the default rates. So when there's a bad season, there's significant default. And so an outcome of this pilot, as you go to the next slide, was the product that we developed, which was essentially a product around insurance for the solar company's portfolio. So the SME in this case being the solar company, and we're able to provide an agricultural insurance product for their customers. So this is essentially a product that supports and providing insurance against agricultural risks for the solar home system customer. So what this would do is that in case of a shock, in case of a drought or floods in the area, then the insurance will kick in and essentially provide a payment holiday for the customer of the solar company. Next. That essentially describes how the product is designed. Let me go on to the next slide. Next slide, kindly. And so I think what we'll cover now is just specific to the case of Vitalize Zambia. Vitalize Zambia was our first customer in Zambia who jumped onto this product. You go on kindly. Next slide. Okay, so just a background around Vitalize Zambia. About 40,000 customers in Zambia, essentially providing these solar home companies, and essentially took on the product in the 2019-2020 season, and also taking the product again in 2020-2021 season. Go ahead. Next slide. So this is just a bit of details around the cover that we provided for Vitalize last year, and that was for the season coming 2019-2020 season. So essentially insured about $18 per farmer, and had about 8,800 farmers insured. Next slide shows that the product good season, and actually, as a matter of fact, there were no payouts. It's actually a very good season in Zambia last year. So the next slide then goes on to show this essentially what's happening right now with COVID-19. So for the smallholder farmers in this COVID situation, what's happening is that significant losses for farmers because there have been lockdowns across most of Africa, and this has closed down markets. And most of these farmers actually sell their produce in the open air markets. And so there's been significant losses for the farmers, especially those that are selling perishable goods. And then there have also been just challenges to the food supply, to the supply chain, and of course, challenges to the purchasing power. Now, what this means that for the solar company, which is the SME that has been lending to the smallholder farmers, is that there's been an impact in the income levels of the farmer. Of course, then just creates strain in terms of the payback, and there's been a slightly higher level of default than usual. On to the next slide. So what has then happened is because of this, we've actually now covering 8,500, very similar number to the number that was covered in the 2019-2020 season. But then what the SME has then done is sort of increase the sum insured by farmer by about 4 times. And so overall, insuring 4 times the total cover that we actually had last year. And the main reason for this is that in a case like this where we have a COVID impact on the farmers, should there be then a secondary shock, droughts, floods, locusts as an example, or the fall armyworm, should then these secondary shocks then play in? What the SME has done is use this insurance to defend against just further levels of default that would have been expected should there be any secondary shocks in the market in Zambia. On to the next slide. And so really this is a summary, just saying for the farmer, this is then very significant because it just protects them against repossession and loss of their solar home system in case of a second wave of economic shock that would then be additive to what COVID has been. For the solar company, at this point, it's really just protecting their balance sheet in this time of COVID, because it then prevents further defaults from the farmers, and of course just protects their reputation, which would then have to happen where they'll have to go in and begin to repossess solar home systems as a result of a secondary shock. I think that's really the summary. I think that's our last slide. You can go on to the next slide, but it's really a Q&A.
Good. Thank you. Excellent. Impressive indeed. Thank you so much, Mumo. Also for mentioning the cooperation on PAYGO solar home systems with IFAD in Zambia. I don't think it requires any summary on my side of the key points because everything was very, very clear. However, I would also like to give you a question that allows you to further elaborate. So what do you see the key changes in terms of type and importance of risks affecting agri-SMEs that you have noticed since the emergence of COVID? And I would like to specify perhaps where do you see the need to modify insurance products and services and demand for new type of agricultural risk management tools for agri-SMEs and digital technology applications in the countries Pula is operating? Over to you.
Yeah, so I think as I've mentioned, I think I explained some of the challenges that farmers have had. So I'll go straight to the digital product, which was the question, which is that what else can we do as a smallholder, small providers of smallholder insurance? Two things that have really come out is, one is other kinds of parametric insurance. So maybe based on a price index, because in times like this, all other kinds of factors have come up. And so prices have been affected and lower demand, lower prices. Can we do anything around the farmers, around protecting them against a price index? Now, we can do this in some markets, especially where there is where they see a commodity exchange where the prices are known. And there's a very, very objective way of knowing what the price is for maize or for cotton and the like. So this is one of the things that we're actually considering significantly, which is not just protecting the farmers against drought, flood, pests, and disease, but also against price fluctuations in the market. Of course, the other question that has been asked for us for parametric providers is, are we willing to roll out products that then protects against pandemics in general? Because I think we are all now very aware that this can happen again. And so that's another one, which is really an index against sort of this, something of that kind that can sort of protect at times of a pandemic like this, or general economic crisis, as sort of a nationwide or even a global economic crisis of this kind. And that's something that has been asked. The price index we're exploring, we haven't actually begun to explore something around the pandemic, but that's maybe what we're going to, coming out of this will be the price index will be significant as one of the new products we're exploring now.
Again, excellent. Thank you so much, Momo. I really appreciate your answers. I need to ask the hosts of the live talks whether we can quickly reflect, before we go into the Q&A session, quickly reflect on the first poll result. Is that foreseen to do that? I mean, the panelists, not me, because I found the outcome quite exciting. This was the question about the greatest factor influencing agri-SMEs exposure to risks resulting from the COVID. And the result is, it's mainly two. Michael, yeah, you're connected. Shall we quickly reflect on the result?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, the objective is also to have the second poll run just before the Q&A. So we can either address the first one now, or run the second one and address both following that. It's up to you.
Okay, then I continue because I'm quite excited about the outcome, and the outcome is that there are mainly two great factors. One is the reliance on effective infrastructure or transport facilities, and the second one was on government response, including lockdown measures. Any of the panelists who want to reflect on this? Perhaps in the meantime, we can close the slideshow. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Megha,
please. Yes.
Yeah, so coming to the very first answer about the infrastructure and transport, we have also experienced that, as I say, decentralized supply chain really works. And when we say decentralized, it's in terms of the geography, in terms of the ownership, in terms of the decision making. During pandemic, we have members who are farmers. We have members who had taken bought assets of small trucks or lorries from the loans, and who did transport of these commodities of the small farmers. When the entire things were closed, we took the approvals from the government, and the supply chain really worked. So I believe that the decentralized supply chain and the ownership of the members, the farmers, is really important. Even our Rudy processing centers are set up at the cluster of village level, where the farmers, they manage and they own these structures where they procure. They do not have storage facility at home, so they store at the Rudy processing centers, and that's how through the network in the villages they supplied. So I feel that the infrastructure transport in hands of the farmers is really important, and it works. Thank you. Back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Megha. I see, Daniel, you also want to come in and reflect on the factors.
Yeah, sure. In the case of the government response, we have seen a mixed results, not only in Peru, but also in other countries where we work in Latin America. In the case of Peru, for example, the government through local banks provide loans to working capital under a fund Reactiva Peru. With what we experiment with that fund is that they provide important cash to operation of different enterprises in all the country. In the case of, for example, our clients, not all were benefit of this process, of this fund. We could say that 30% of them receive these funds. However, with the funds that we provide, that in fact in this year, 2020, we increased the amount of disbursement, the collocations in Peru regarding to last year because of this pandemic. Well, that the funds that we make plus the funds that the government could deliver through local banks help to mainly to small farmers, because they could able to sell quickly the coffee or the cocoa, for example, to in the local markets quicker than other years. However, the lockdowns and the issues with the transportation, the logistic, and the damage of the current roads generate a negative impact to the small farmers. So, for one side, the cash flow help to minimize the losses that the farmers could have, but unfortunately the results, the outcome of this year to small farmers in general in Peru and other countries is negative, no?
Thank you, Daniel. Any other reflections? No. Then I think it's now time to open the Q&A segment. I was trying to follow the incoming questions, remarks in the meantime. I see it quite balanced, and perhaps we should do it in chronological order. Stanium, you want me to read it, or you want to read it out? Or I can try to capture the main question. Megha, I think the first question goes to you. SEWA and SEWA Bank mechanism. In particularly, you see the new Livelihood Recovery Fund is attracting the attention of our audience. So I don't know, do you see the question, or do I need to read it in detail?
I think you could please read yourself, Michael.
Okay. So the question is from Kovatel. Do I understand correctly that the Livelihood Recovery Fund is a loan mechanism of SEWA Bank? I have the answer, but I leave it to Mega. What makes it different from the other microloan mechanisms for small farming households? Mega, please.
Yeah, thank you. The Livelihood Recovery Fund basically is a support to the small and marginal farmers. We had piloted through bank, and through bank to the local level, the district level farmers association, we supported the small and marginal farmers. Basically, the concept of Livelihood Recovery Fund is arrangement in the period, the lean period, or where there is a no cash flow period for the small marginal farmers or the sharecroppers. So basically what we have thought is that this will be a mix of a grant or soft loans or the equity or the debt, so that we can provide the lower interest support to the small and marginal farmers. So a fund created through these kind of a support, which can help farmers to provide not only the support for their food security, but for the investment in the next season. So this is a combination of, as I said, the loans, debt, equity, or the grant fund. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Mega, for clarifying this. James Dennis is saying that the presentation of Rook Capital was excellent, and he has also some experience with Rook Capital. He wants to know whether Rook Capital is willing to go beyond limited high-value enterprises such as coffee. And I believe, yes, this was only one example we were focusing on today. Daniel.
Yeah, we work in coffee. We have a big experience there, but also we work in cocoa in Latin America, and in East Africa we work in macadamia and other basic grains. We are always looking for to have more experience in other value chain, but we take care. And we are very careful to enter in a industry in order to first understand the most important risk, the most important levers of the most important things to know of every industry that we work. With this management, we would like to support to be additional to enterprises, to agricultural enterprises, but also to manage our risks in a good way. So that's what I can say about that. Thank you, Michael.
You want to take the second question immediately on BDS, whether BDS is an opportunity for business development services even before extending a financial facility. So what is the order of interventions?
Yeah. There's not only one order. In some cases, we started with the loan, and after our advisory team came to support them in some needs that the organization could have. But in other cases, when the enterprise, the organization is in a lower level of development, our advisory service enter first to provide the training, capacitation, and tools, specific tools, in order to have to bring the next step in the development of the organization, and could be prepared to exigence of a lender as Rook Capital. No, we provide loans in a timely way, but we always are monitoring our loans. So we request reports every 1 month or every 2 months. So we need to see that the companies that we are financing are prepared to these levels of report. So between other things, our advisory service support enterprises to be prepared to this. And we know that if one organization could enter in the portfolio of Rook Capital, after that, many other lenders could be more willing to provide loans to the organizations, to those organizations. So that's why we try to not to have only one model of intervention with every company.
Very clear, Daniel. A quick one. This relates to site selling, and it is one of the participants who asked, so whether you have any concrete signs or indicators that indicate an increasing level of loyalty of your members, if there are other opportunity to sell somewhere else at a higher price.
Yeah, well, the one specific indicator of loyalty is that the producers deliver the coffee or the cocoa or the productions to the organization, even if the prices are similar or a little bit lower. That's first one. The second is in some cases, for example, in this situation, because the logistics was harder than other years, the time of the cash flow conversion was longer. So if the last years coffee organization, cocoa organization spend 15, 30 to 25 days to convert the cash production to cash, now they spend more days. So that means increase in the needs of working capital. And one way to finance that is loans from financial institutions, but also from providers, from suppliers. So in some cases, in the case of members of Unicafe, for example, they need to wait a little bit more time to receive the 100% payment from the cooperative. So that is not done by producers to whatever buyer or customer. No, this is something that you need to trust on the organization that is buying you the production. So in this case, what we see is these are the two indicators: deliver the coffee, but also in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases, wait for the payment a little bit.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Daniel. Momo, there are two questions. I think we can do it in one go. The first is whether you operate in Uganda, and perhaps you should just give the information which are the 11 countries across Africa you're working. And the second question, Momo, is I read it out. Usually, how big is the effect of an agri-risk on the default rate in the credit portfolio of solar providers? In other words, what is the normal default rate without shock, and how high is the default rate in case of a drought, for example? Over to you, Momo.
Oh, all right. I'll ask if the presenter can show the slide. My second slide showed our country footprint. That would be good. And yes, we are active in Uganda. And then on the second question, the question is around what's the effect? Our effect is, it tends to be about 20 to 30%, depending on the degree of the drought. So when you get prolonged droughts, let's say multiple seasons, then it becomes very significant. The general ratio is about 80% of the people in the rural areas, either directly or indirectly, earn from the agricultural value chain. And so based on this, we're finding about 20 to 30% higher default rates during the time of extended, mainly drought, tends to be the major one that affects. And the other major one is pests, so locust and fall armyworm being the major ones.
Good. That was a very concise answer. Thanks a lot, Mo. So I think for me, it's time to thank you all once again, very, very much. Very enlightening, very rich. I've learned a lot. I think it's time to have the second poll question now. For you, you may reflect on the result. And then it's my great pleasure to hand over to Pranav Prasad, my good friend from ILO, who is going to wrap up, to distill the key takeaways and has the closing remarks. So let's do. Benio, will you do, or will you guide us through the second poll, or Michael, will you do it?
Let me do it and take it through from here, if it's okay with everybody.
Yep. Good.
Yes.
Good.
So thanks, Michael. Thank you, all the speakers, for this. And the second poll question requests the audience and tries to get their view on, having heard all these wonderful presentations and having heard all these wonderful inputs and the various innovations that the organizations have done, what do you feel is the support that can most help the agri-SMEs in wake of the pandemic or any of such shocks that happen? Do you think technical assistance and capacity building needs by the development sector will be the best suitable, or would providing access to financial services and investing more money in their businesses be more useful? Or would it be providing more de-risking tools or more de-risking mechanisms that can best suit the interests of the agri-SMEs? You have some time to reflect and answer it. Please go ahead and respond to this question now. And while you are reflecting and answering, let me thank all the speakers formally for their wonderful inputs and sharing their experiences on how their organizations have tackled the pandemic. And also, Michael, for you to linking it all together for us and putting it all in one place makes my job rather straightforward. So thank you very much for that. And as we are going towards the end of the poll, can we have the results now, please? Wonderful. So a lot of you feel that access to de-risking tools would be best suited for the organizations to react positively in these circumstances, though access to finance certainly plays an important role. And a few of you feel that if we can provide technical assistance, provide specific issues to be tackled, as well as build capacities of the organizations along the entire, should I say, value chain, it would help them immensely. So thank you very much for your inputs, and thank you very much for these thoughts. I think these reflect very well in some of the common themes that I've seen running through the presentation and through the discussions that we've been talking about. One very, very important aspect that came across was the basic resiliency of the supply chain, which the organizations have sought to maintain. How was this resilience built up and how was this resilience maintained? Primarily through use of technology, early adoption for various technological tools, as we saw Rudy doing it, and we saw Rook Capital's inputs there. Second aspect was, of course, more strength by building up internal processes and focusing on better governance and better communication of the entire effort and the entire tool systems and the entire mechanisms that were available to the ecosystem. This communication was, of course, added on by the focus on community work and looking for answers within rather than going out and waiting for the government to respond, which brought about a lot of customer centricity in the entire process. How was this customer centricity reflected? Primarily through process alignment. Common customers were used, as we saw Pula so elegantly doing, combining an insurance solution with, while trying to solve the problem of the solar organization, or through increasing coverages and providing greater value to the customers by providing extra services, as we saw in the Peru case, where both business development services as well as loans were provided so that a comprehensive package could be delivered to the customers. In addition, we saw a lot of focus throughout the presentations on decentralizing the supply chain, which essentially meant that local decisions to be taken locally to react to local problems rather than having a uniform solution and being flexible about it. There was a lot of emphasis, as we saw, on being innovative, like setting up sanitization stations, which actually helped not just the process improve, but also built up reflection in the community itself, so the community adoption became quite stable. The focus was not just on providing financial services, but on a multidimensional approach throughout the three presentations that we saw, which also helped the customers and the members in building a better case and building a better outreach for them. The other interesting part, of course, was the aspect, like I mentioned, on not just focusing on the problems that the organization is having, but also trying to look at problems from a customer's perspective and from your partner's perspective, because by trying to solve their problems, your own problems were kind of getting reflected very well and getting solved in the bargain. So while access to finance for individual farmers remained low, innovative products got developed, such as the livelihood protection fund that we heard about, such as the index insurance products getting more refined and more suited to the direct customers intake, as well as this entire issue of agri-tech and insure-tech, which seems to be playing a prominent role and will hopefully continue to play a prominent role as we go forward. Encompassing all this is, of course, the fact that we saw that there is no right or perfect solution that suits all the cases in one go. So while there have been local differences and local innovations and local inputs into each of the various that we heard, but trying to solve the problems at their end itself without relying on outside support, whether it is through the women members of Rudy becoming local entrepreneurs and going out and making doorstep deliveries to the farmers for their products, or whether it was the using services of the solar channel to reach out to the customers and solve their problem, or whether it is in Peru, the supply of services through business development services and adequate investment. So it all reflected the customer centricity and looking at it from their part and thereby trying to keep the entire supply chain and the entire channels constant and trying to come out of this pandemic. We look forward to developing all these themes more in the times to come, and we would look forward to be hearing from all our presenters as we move forward. Thank you once again, and we look forward to engaging with you further in such webinars, as well as hopefully when travel resumes shortly in the new year. I wish you the best for the festive season and wish you all a very, very happy 2021. Thank you very much for attending.